Why do 90% of people fail in bottle gardening before their plants even start growing properly? The truth is simple. It's not the seeds, it's not luck, and it's not even effort. The real reason is hidden mistakes that most beginners never notice. Bottle gardening looks easy from the outside. Take a plastic bottle, add soil, plant a seed, and done. But in reality, this small setup creates a completely different environment, and most people don't understand how sensitive that environment really is. The failure actually starts before planting even begins. People randomly pick any plastic bottle without thinking. Big bottle, small bottle, thin bottle, thick bottle, no planning at all. But this one decision quietly controls everything that happens next, because inside a bottle, plants don't behave like they do in open soil. Everything becomes limited. Air is limited. Water movement is limited. Heat builds up faster. Moisture stays longer. And if you don't control these factors properly, the plant slowly starts struggling. Now here's the shocking part. Most plants don't die suddenly. They fail slowly. First, growth becomes slow. Then leaves start losing color. Then roots get weak. And finally, the plant collapses. But by that time, beginners think they did everything right. And this is where confusion begins. People start adding more water, or changing soil, or moving the bottle to different places. But nothing works, because the real problem was never visible from the outside. The hidden truth is this: bottle gardening is not just planting, it is system control. You are creating a mini ecosystem inside plastic, and if that system is unbalanced even slightly, the plant cannot survive properly. Think about it. If water cannot drain properly, it collects at the bottom. Roots sit in constant moisture and slowly start rotting. If sunlight is too strong, the bottle heats up like a greenhouse and damages the plant. If airflow is missing, roots cannot breathe and growth stops completely. Each problem alone seems small, but inside a closed bottle, all these small problems combine into one big failure. And the worst part is timing. These problems don't show instantly. A plant can look healthy for several days, even one full week, and then, suddenly, it starts dying. That delay makes beginners believe everything was fine, when actually, the damage was already done from the very beginning. This is why most people get trapped in frustration. They think they are doing everything correctly, but the system itself is wrong. And when the system is wrong, results will always fail, no matter how much effort you put in. So before you even think about planting again, you need to understand one thing clearly. Success in bottle gardening is not about doing more. It is about doing the right setup from the start. Most people never realize this, but the biggest silent killer in bottle gardening is the bottle itself. Yes, the container you choose decides whether your plant will grow or slowly die without you even noticing. At first, it feels like any plastic bottle will work. A water bottle, a soda bottle, a milk container. People just pick whatever is available. But this is exactly where the problem begins, because not all bottles create the same growing environment inside. Think about it carefully. A thin, clear plastic bottle behaves completely differently from a thick, colored one. A wide bottle holds moisture differently than a narrow one. Even the shape changes how air and water move inside the soil. But most beginners ignore all of this. Now here's what actually happens inside the wrong bottle setup. If the bottle is too small, roots quickly run out of space. If it is too large, moisture spreads unevenly and creates weak root zones. If the plastic is too thin, temperature inside changes too fast, heating up in sunlight and cooling down quickly at night. And all of this directly stresses the plant. And the worst mistake? Closed bottles without proper modification. Many people seal bottles or forget to create proper airflow and drainage. This turns the bottle into a trap instead of a growing space. Water stays inside, roots stay wet, and slowly, rot begins from the bottom, where you cannot see it. Here's something important most beginners don't know. Roots are extremely sensitive to oxygen levels. They don't just need water and soil, they need air inside the soil too. When the wrong bottle traps moisture and blocks airflow, roots literally start suffocating. And once that happens, recovery becomes very difficult. Now let's talk about sunlight effect. Transparent bottles look perfect because they allow light in. But too much direct sunlight can turn the inside into a mini greenhouse. The soil heats up faster than normal ground, and that heat damages delicate root systems. So even a good-looking bottle can silently harm your plant. Another hidden issue is bottle color. Dark bottles absorb more heat, which can overheat soil quickly. Clear bottles allow algae growth if moisture is high. Every choice creates a different impact, but beginners rarely think this deeply. This is why two people using the same seeds can get completely different results. One plant grows healthy, while the other dies early. The difference is not skill, it's bottle selection. And here's the most dangerous part. These mistakes don't show immediately. At first, the plant may look fine. It may even grow a little, but inside, the root system is already under stress. Slowly, growth stops, leaves lose strength, and by the time you notice, it is often too late. So what is the real solution? It's not about finding a perfect bottle. It's about understanding balance. A bottle that allows airflow, supports drainage, maintains stable temperature, and gives enough space for roots to expand. Without this balance, no plant can survive long-term in a confined space. Now that you understand how the wrong bottle silently destroys your plants, the next critical step is even more important. Because even with the perfect bottle, one mistake in drainage can completely ruin everything. Even if you choose the right bottle, there is still one mistake that silently destroys almost every bottle garden, and most people never even notice it happening. That mistake is poor drainage. Drainage sounds simple, but in bottle gardening, it is everything. Because inside a closed, plastic environment, water does not behave like it does in open soil. It has nowhere to escape, and when water has no exit, it slowly becomes a trap for the roots. At first, everything looks normal. You water the plant, the soil looks fresh, and the seed starts to grow. But deep inside the bottle, something different is happening. Water starts collecting at the bottom layer, the soil becomes overly wet, and the roots begin sitting in moisture for too long. Now here is the real problem. Roots are not designed to stay in constant water. They need a balance of moisture and air. When drainage is missing, that balance is destroyed completely. And once balance is gone, the plant slowly starts to weaken from the inside. You won't see it immediately. That is what makes this mistake so dangerous. The plant may still look green for a few days. It may even grow slightly, but underground, the roots are already suffocating. Oxygen levels drop, root cells start to rot, and the damage continues silently. Most beginners mistake this condition for lack of water. So what do? They add more water, and this makes the situation even worse, because now the soil becomes fully saturated, and the root system is completely trapped in a waterlogged environment. Here's something important you need to understand. Overwatering in bottle gardening is not just a mistake, it is a death sentence for roots when drainage is missing. Because there is no way for excess water to escape, every extra drop increases the damage. Another hidden issue is bottle layering. Many people do not create any drainage layer at the bottom. No holes, no gravel, no structure to manage excess water, so everything stays inside. And over time, that small mistake turns into complete root failure. Even if you think the plant is surviving, the signs are already there. Leaves start becoming weak, growth slows down, soil develops a bad smell. These are early warnings that most beginners ignore completely. And the most frustrating part is that people blame everything except the real issue. They change fertilizer, they move the plant, they switch sunlight positions, but nothing works. Because the problem is not above the soil, it is inside it. Drainage is not just about letting water out. It is about creating a controlled environment where roots can breathe. Without it, even the healthiest seed will struggle to survive in the long run. Now think about this carefully. If wrong bottle choice creates stress and poor drainage creates suffocation, then the plant is already fighting two invisible battles at once. And that is why most bottle gardens fail before they even get a real chance. But here's the interesting part. Even if drainage is perfect, there is still another hidden mistake that silently stops plant growth completely. Something that looks harmless, but affects everything from root strength to leaf development. Even when the bottle is perfect and drainage is working properly, there is still one more silent reason why bottle gardens suddenly stop growing. And this one is even more dangerous because it looks completely normal at first. That problem is the soil. Most beginners think soil is just dirt, something you fill inside the bottle and forget about. But in reality, soil is the foundation of the entire system. If the foundation is wrong, nothing above it can survive properly. At the start, People usually use whatever soil they can find: garden soil, sandy soil, or even reused soil from old pots. It looks fine on the surface, so they assume it will work. But inside a bottle, soil behaves very differently than in open ground. Here's what actually happens. If the soil is too compact, it blocks airflow. Roots cannot move freely, and oxygen cannot reach deeper layers. If the soil is too loose, it cannot hold moisture properly, and the plant dries out quickly. In both cases, the plant struggles silently. Now there is another hidden issue most beginners completely ignore: poor soil quality. If the soil has no nutrients or organic balance, the seed may sprout, but it will not grow strong. It will survive for a few days, and then slowly stop developing. And here is where confusion starts. People think the plant is healthy because it is green, but green does not always mean growth. A plant can stay green while still being weak inside, with no real development happening underground. One of the biggest mistakes is using heavy clay soil in bottles. Clay holds too much water and becomes hard when dry. This creates a suffocating environment for roots. On the other hand, sandy soil drains too quickly, leaving roots dry and unstable. Both extremes cause failure. Another major issue is mixing soil without balance. Many beginners randomly mix compost, sand, and garden soil without understanding proportions. This creates an unstable environment where moisture and nutrients are not distributed evenly. And here is something most people don't realize. In bottle gardening, soil is not just a growing medium, it is a controlled environment. It decides how air, water, and nutrients move inside the bottle, so even a small imbalance can stop growth completely. You might notice this problem when plants stop increasing in size. They don't die immediately, but they also don't grow. This stuck growth stage is one of the most frustrating experiences for beginners, and soil is usually the hidden reason behind it. Many people try to fix this by adding fertilizer, but if the soil structure itself is wrong, fertilizer cannot solve the problem. It only adds temporary energy, not real stability, and after a short time, the plant returns to the same weak condition. This is why understanding soil is so important. It is not about using any dirt. It is about creating the right balance of texture, nutrients, and moisture control so roots can develop properly inside a limited space. Now think about it. If bottle choice creates the structure, drainage controls water, and soil controls growth, then even one mistake in soil can break the entire system from the inside. But the story doesn't end here. Because even if your soil is perfect, there's another silent mistake that slowly destroys plants without showing any clear warning signs. A mistake most beginners repeat every single time without thinking. Why do most beginners think that giving more water means better plant growth? This is one of the biggest misconceptions in bottle gardening, and it silently kills more plants than any other mistake. At first, it feels logical. A plant needs water to survive, so more water should help it grow faster. But inside a bottle garden, this logic completely breaks, because the system is closed, and water does not behave the same way it does in open soil. When you add water into a bottle setup, it does not just disappear into the ground, it stays trapped. It moves slowly, and if the system is already slightly imbalanced, that water starts building up in hidden layers where roots are working. Now here is where the real problem begins. Roots need oxygen as much as they need water. When too much water fills the soil, oxygen levels drop, and without oxygen, roots cannot breathe properly. They start weakening from the inside, even if the plant still looks fine above the soil. Most beginners don't realize this early damage is already happening. They see slightly dry leaves or slow growth and assume the plant needs more water, so they water it again and again. This creates a dangerous cycle that slowly pushes the plant toward failure. In bottle gardening, overwatering is not just too much care, it is suffocation. Because the bottle has limited drainage and airflow, every extra drop stays inside longer than it should. That trapped moisture becomes the perfect environment for root rot. At the beginning, the plant may look completely normal: green leaves, steady stem, small growth. But underground, the roots are already struggling. They become soft, weak, and unable to absorb nutrients properly. This is why growth suddenly stops after a few days. And then confusion starts again. People try fertilizers, change sunlight, or move the bottle around, but nothing works, because the real damage is already done below the surface where they cannot see. Another dangerous habit is daily watering. Many beginners think consistency means watering every day, but in bottle gardening, there is no universal schedule. Watering depends on moisture level, bottle size, temperature, and soil type. Ignoring this creates constant oversaturation. Even worse, some people close the bottle completely, thinking it will save water, but this actually increases humidity inside, making evaporation slower and trapping moisture even more. This speeds up root decay even further. Here's the key truth you need to understand. In bottle gardening, water is not the goal. Balance is the goal. The right amount of water at the right time is what keeps roots alive. Too much water removes oxygen. Too little water stops growth. Balance is everything. And this is where most beginners fail without realizing it. They focus on visible care, not invisible conditions. But plants don't respond to effort, they respond to environment. Now think about this carefully. If wrong bottle choice creates stress, poor drainage creates suffocation, wrong soil blocks growth, and overwatering destroys oxygen balance, then the plant is already fighting multiple invisible problems at once. But there is still one more hidden factor that controls everything inside bottle gardening. Something most people never think about, but it determines whether a plant thrives or slowly gives up over time. Why do plants in bottle gardening suddenly stop growing even when everything else seems perfect? The answer is often hiding in plain sight. It is not just water, soil, or bottle design. It is something far more powerful and often misunderstood: sunlight. Most beginners believe sunlight is always good for plants, so they place their bottle gardens in direct sun all day, thinking it will boost growth. Others assume too much heat might be harmful, so they keep plants in dark corners. But in both cases, the result is the same: weak or stopped growth. Here is the truth most people ignore. Sunlight inside bottle gardening does not behave like normal gardening. Because the plant is inside a closed plastic environment, light intensity and heat behave very differently compared to open soil. When a bottle is placed in direct sunlight for long hours, it starts acting like a mini greenhouse. Heat gets trapped inside. The temperature inside the bottle rises faster than the outside environment, and this sudden heat directly affects the roots, not just the leaves. Roots are extremely sensitive. When the soil temperature increases too much, they lose their ability to absorb water and nutrients properly. Even if water is available, the plant behaves like it is dehydrated. This confuses beginners even more. On the other hand, when plants are kept in low light or shade for too long, another problem begins. The plant starts stretching toward light. Leaves become weak, stems become thin, and overall growth slows down significantly. The plant survives, but it does not develop strength. Now here's the hidden issue most people never notice. Inside a bottle, light does not spread evenly. Some parts of the soil receive more heat, while others stay cooler. This uneven temperature creates inconsistent root activity, which directly affects growth stability. Another common mistake is moving plants too frequently between light and shade. Beginners try to fix growth problems by shifting bottles every day, but this constant change creates shock in the plant system. Plants need stable conditions, not random adjustments. Even the type of plastic matters. Clear bottles allow more sunlight penetration, which increases heat buildup. Dark or colored bottles reduce light, but can limit photosynthesis. So both extremes can create problems if not balanced correctly. This is why sunlight management is not just about placing a bottle in a good spot. It is about controlling intensity, duration, and stability. A plant needs consistent light exposure, not extreme fluctuations. And here is something very important. When a plant is stressed by incorrect sunlight, the symptoms often look like other problems. People think it is watering issues or soil problems, but in reality, light imbalance is the hidden cause. This is what makes sunlight confusion so dangerous. It silently affects everything at once: growth speed, leaf color, root strength, and overall plant health. And because the changes are gradual, beginners rarely connect the cause to the result. So if your bottle garden is not growing properly, the problem may not be what you are doing with water or soil. It may be how your plant is experiencing light every single day. Now think about the full system. If bottle choice controls structure, drainage controls survival, soil controls growth, water controls balance, and sunlight controls energy, then even one mistake in any of these can silently break the entire cycle. But there is still one more hidden factor that completes the system, a factor that most beginners completely ignore, yet it decides whether a plant survives long-term or slowly dies without warning. Why do some bottle garden plants look completely fine on the outside, but suddenly stop growing or start dying without any clear reason? The answer is something you cannot see, but your plant feels it every single moment: airflow inside the bottle. This is one of the most ignored problems in bottle gardening. Beginners focus on soil, water, and sunlight, but they forget that plants also need to breathe. And inside a plastic bottle, breathing becomes a real challenge if the environment is not properly managed. At first, everything seems normal. The plant is green, the soil is moist, and there are no visible issues. But inside that closed or semi-closed bottle environment, air circulation is extremely limited. And when air cannot move freely, problems slowly begin to build up. Roots especially suffer the most. They don't just absorb water and nutrients, they also need oxygen from the soil. When airflow is restricted, oxygen levels in the soil drop, and when oxygen drops, roots start becoming weak, even if everything else looks perfect on the surface. Now here's something important. Most beginners think adding water solves plant problems, but in reality, without airflow, water becomes part of the problem, because trapped moisture combined with low oxygen creates the perfect conditions for root stress and decay. Another hidden issue is humidity buildup inside the bottle. When there is no airflow, moisture has nowhere to escape. This creates a constantly damp environment. At first, it looks good because soil stays wet, but over time, this excessive humidity prevents roots from functioning properly. You may notice symptoms like slow growth, yellowing leaves, or a plant that suddenly looks tired. But these are not random problems. They are direct signs that the plant is struggling to breathe inside its environment. And here's where most people go wrong. They try to fix visible symptoms instead of the invisible cause. They change fertilizer, adjust watering, or move the bottle, but nothing works. Because airflow, the real issue, is still not addressed. Even small design choices in bottle gardening can affect airflow. A fully sealed bottle traps air completely. A poorly ventilated bottle reduces oxygen exchange. Even soil that is too compact can block air movement from reaching deeper root layers. On the other hand, too much airflow loss also creates temperature imbalance. Heat builds up inside the bottle, and without circulation, that heat stays trapped longer than it should. This adds extra stress to both roots and leaves. This is why airflow is not just a small detail. It is a hidden foundation of plant health in bottle gardening. Without it, every other factor becomes unstable over time. And the most dangerous part is that airflow problems develop slowly. There is no sudden warning. The plant doesn't die instantly. It weakens step by step until one day it can no longer recover. So if your bottle garden looks fine, but growth is still not happening, the issue might not be what you are adding, but what is missing in the environment. Airflow is that missing link most beginners never think about. Now connect everything so far. Bottle selection controls structure, drainage controls water safety, soil controls growth strength, sunlight controls energy, and airflow controls breathing. If even one of these fails, the entire system becomes unstable. But there is still one more hidden mistake that completes the full picture. A mistake most beginners repeat without realizing it, which silently destroys even well-designed bottle gardens over time. Why do some bottle gardens never even reach the growth stage? Why do seeds fail to germinate even when soil, water, and setup all seem perfect? The answer often comes down to one overlooked mistake: seed selection. Most beginners assume that any seed will grow if conditions are right, so they pick random seeds without checking quality, type, or suitability for bottle gardening. But this one decision quietly controls everything that happens from the very beginning. At first, it seems simple. You place the seed in soil, add water, and wait. But not all seeds are designed to grow in confined environments like plastic bottles. Some seeds need deep soil space, some need stable outdoor conditions, and some require very specific temperature and moisture levels to even start germination. Now here's the hidden issue most people never realize. Low quality or old seeds often fail before they even begin. They may look normal, but inside, they have lost their germination power. So no matter how perfect your setup is, nothing will grow. Another common mistake is using seeds that are not suitable for small containers. Large plants that require deep root systems simply cannot develop properly inside bottles. Even if they sprout, They quickly stop growing because they run out of space and energy. And here is where confusion starts again. Beginners think the problem is soil, water, or sunlight, so they keep adjusting everything except the real cause. But when the seed itself is weak or unsuitable, no environmental change can fix it. Timing also plays a huge role. Some seeds need pre-soaking, some need scarification, and some need specific planting seasons. Ignoring these natural requirements reduces germination chances significantly, but most beginners skip this step completely. Now think about what happens inside the bottle. Even if everything is perfect, drainage, soil, airflow, and sunlight, the seed still needs internal strength to activate growth. If that internal energy is missing, nothing will happen. The system cannot create life from a dead seed. Another hidden mistake is planting too many seeds in one bottle. Beginners often try to increase success chances by adding multiple seeds, but this creates competition for limited space, nutrients, and oxygen. As a result, none of the plants grow properly. And here is something very important. Germination is the most sensitive stage in a plant's life cycle. If anything goes wrong at this stage, recovery is almost impossible. That is why seed quality and selection are more important than any later adjustment. Most people don't realize this because failure is not immediate. They wait days or even weeks expecting growth, but nothing happens, and slowly they assume bottle gardening doesn't work for them, when in reality, the foundation was weak from the start. So the truth is simple but powerful. Even a perfect setup cannot fix a bad seed, but a good seed in the right environment can grow with very little effort. Everything begins at this one point. Now connect the full system. Bottle selection creates structure. Drainage controls water safety. Soil supports growth. Sunlight provides energy. Airflow enables breathing. And seed selection determines life itself. If any one of these fails, the entire system collapses before it even begins. But even when seeds germinate successfully, there is still a stage where most beginners lose control completely. A stage where small mistakes turn into major failures very quickly, if not handled properly. After understanding all the common mistakes, one question naturally comes up: what actually works in bottle gardening? Because once seeds germinate and the plant starts growing, the real challenge begins: keeping it stable, strong, and healthy inside a limited environment. Most beginners think success is about doing more water, more fertilizer, more sunlight. But experienced growers know the truth. Bottle gardening is not about more effort. It is about smart control. One of the most effective hacks is controlling moisture balance instead of following a fixed watering schedule. Experts never water blindly. They check soil condition first. If the soil is slightly moist, they wait. If it is drying evenly, they water carefully. This simple habit alone prevents most early failures. Another powerful trick is layering the bottom of the bottle correctly. Instead of letting soil sit directly at the base, a thin layer of gravel, pebbles, or small stones helps regulate water movement. This creates a natural buffer that prevents water from staying trapped in one place for too long. Now here is something most beginners never consider: air holes. Small, controlled openings in the bottle improve airflow without disturbing the environment. Experts understand that even minimal air exchange can dramatically improve root health and reduce humidity stress. Light positioning is another key factor. Instead of placing bottles in direct, harsh sunlight, experienced growers use indirect or filtered light. This keeps temperatures stable and prevents overheating inside the bottle. Stability is more important than intensity. Another simple but powerful technique is soil mixing with balance. Instead of using one type of soil, experts create a mix that holds moisture but still allows airflow. This balance helps roots grow freely while still receiving enough water and nutrients. Seed spacing is also important. Instead of overcrowding, only 1 or 2 strong seeds are planted per bottle. This reduces competition and allows the plant to use all available space efficiently. Strong growth always comes from less competition. One underrated hack is rotation. Turning the bottle slightly every few days ensures even light exposure. This prevents uneven growth, where one side becomes strong while the other stays weak. Balanced growth leads to stronger plants overall. Experts also avoid sudden changes. Once a bottle garden is set up, they do not keep shifting it frequently. Stability is key. Plants adapt to their environment, and constant change creates stress that slows down growth. Even fertilizing is done carefully. Instead of heavy doses, small and controlled feeding is used over time. This prevents root burn and maintains steady development instead of sudden spikes followed by weakness. And here is the biggest difference between beginners and experts. Beginners react to problems. Experts prevent them before they appear. That is why their bottle gardens look effortless, while others struggle constantly. Now, if you connect everything so far, you can see the full picture clearly. Mistakes destroy the system, but small, smart adjustments can completely transform it. Bottle gardening is not complicated. It just requires understanding how each element works together. But there is still one final stage that brings everything together. A stage where most beginners either succeed fully or give up completely. And this stage is not about techniques anymore. It is about long-term consistency and understanding plant behavior over time. What is the real secret behind a successful bottle garden? After all the mistakes, hacks, and failures, the final truth is surprisingly simple, but most beginners completely miss it. Bottle gardening is not about one perfect step. It is not about one special trick. It is about building a complete system where every small part works together in balance. When you look at experts, it seems like their plants grow effortlessly, but behind that simplicity is a controlled environment where nothing is random. Every element has a purpose, and every decision supports the next one. The first part of this system is structure. The bottle must support the plant, not restrict it. Size, shape, and ventilation all matter because they decide how the environment will behave over time. The second part is water control. Not too much, not too little. The goal is balance. Water should support life, not trap it. This is why drainage and moisture management are always part of the system, not optional extras. The third part is soil balance. Soil is not just dirt, it is the living foundation of growth. It must allow air, hold nutrients, and manage moisture at the same time. When soil is right, everything else becomes easier. The fourth part is light stability. Plants do not need extreme conditions. They need consistent, controlled exposure to sunlight. Stability creates strength, while randomness creates stress. The fifth part is airflow. Without breathing space, even the best setup will slowly fail. Air movement inside the bottle keeps roots healthy and prevents hidden decay. The sixth part is patience and observation. This is where most beginners fail. They rush changes instead of observing signals. Experts watch closely. They adjust slowly. They understand that plants respond over time, not instantly. Now, when you combine all of this, something important becomes clear. Bottle gardening is not separate steps. It is one connected system. If one part is weak, the whole system becomes unstable. This is why random advice never works, because fixing one problem while ignoring others does not solve anything. True success comes from understanding how everything is linked together. And here's the final truth. Plants are not just growing inside a bottle. They are responding to an environment you create. Every drop of water, every bit of soil, every ray of light, every small airflow decision, it all adds up to either success or failure. When you finally understand this system, bottle gardening stops feeling difficult. It becomes predictable. You stop guessing and start controlling. And that is where real growth begins. So the question is not whether bottle gardening works. The question is whether the system you are using is complete or broken. If you build it correctly, even a simple plastic bottle can turn into a powerful mini garden. If you ignore the system, even the best seeds will fail.